Week 3 in the Eff-Zone, can Reservoir Dogs pull the upset over Skywalkers? And in the battle of undefeated teams, Outlaws Empire State, find out who remains undefeated. All that and more on the Eff-Zone. Welcome to the Eff-Zone. I'm your host, Vladimir Louis-Saint. In Week 3, we find out who the pretenders and contenders are and which teams are establishing their dominance in this league, while other teams might need to get their Drake on and start getting their feelings. Let's recap these past 2 weeks. In Game 1 from Week 3, the 5-time defending champions seemed to finally find their motivation, as Terror Squad seemed to rebound from their dismal opening performance in Week 1. The champs were really all in their feelings after a certain someone say they were long in the tooth, which they are. But anyway, they rebounded very well, took their frustrations out on Demolition Crew. Don't know what it was. Maybe it was my comments. Maybe it was the fact that Demolition Crew was wearing their previous uniforms that Terror Squad wore. I don't know what it was, but they really took it out on Demolition Crew, shutting them out 26-0. While their opponent, White Shadow, were coming off a victory over X-Men and seemed to be propelling themselves to be a major factor in this EFF league. While in their Week 3 tilt, Terror Squad totally outmatched White Shadow, defeating them 20-8. White Shadow had an early lead in the first half, 6-0 on a pick six, but Terror Squad, with the return of wide receiver DeAndre Big Country Green, seemed to right the ship and definitely played very well. Definitely better than their Week 1 performance. Big Country was part of all 3 scores for Terror Squad as he caught 2 touchdowns and had a great lateral to Torrey, who took it to the house for 67 yards. Now, Terror Squad is 2-1. Now, if I'm the motivation for Terror Squad, they need something more, because you can't let a reporter be your motivation. You're the 5-time defending champions. You should have motivation on your own. But we'll see what's going to happen later on in the year, as now they're on a 2-game winning streak. White Shadow, they fall to 1-2. Game 2 of Week 3 was an upset special as Reservoir Dogs, who were 0-2 after being handily beaten in Week 1 and suffering a tough loss in Week 2 to Empire State, took on the 2-0 Skywalkers, who were fresh off an impressive victory over Street Finest, where they only had 8 members on their team. It was a handicap, 8 versus 9, and somehow they pulled the victory. Hannibal led his team to a victory with some great play and some good running, but they took it a step further in Week 3 when they only had 7 members on their team, and 7 wasn't lucky. As they say, half chicken, don't make soup. Neil Rodriguez was nearly perfect for Reservoir Dogs as he went 7 for 9 for 169 yards and 4 touchdowns. As a matter of fact, he should have been 9 for 9 as 2 of his receivers dropped easy passes, 1 in the end zone and 1 in the 50-yard line. But speaking of drop passes, Hannibal was upset. It must have been Silence of the Lambs over Hannibal, because they were dropping balls, all his passes. 2 passes in the end zone, easy returns, kickoff returns. They were dropping the ball. Seemed like Skywalkers had Butterfingers all game long as they got mollywopped, 26-0. It was a trashing. Skywalkers fall to 2-1 now, while Reservoir Dogs picked up their first victory of the season. They're 1-2. Game 3 of Week 3 was the marquee matchup between the undefeated Outlaws and the undefeated Empire State. Empire State was 2-0 after going into this battle after beating Mayhem in Week 1 pretty handily, but they struggled against Reservoir Dogs in Week 2. While the Outlaws, who've been totally outclassing their opponents, have seemed to be the team to beat with a 28-0 drubbing of Mayhem in Week 2. The Outlaws quarterback shared the wealth, throwing to all his receivers, and they all were making plays, including the free agent acquisition of the offseason, Marquise Powell, who in Week 2 might have had some shenanigans going on, because apparently there was a rumor he might have been joining Street Finest. But Marquise put all the rumors to bed, made sure everybody know he is part of the Outlaws. The contest was competitive and intense, but in the end, Outlaws was too much to handle for Empire State as they won 26-14. Marquise Powell and Ronald Jean and a defense who was pressuring Smitty all day long made the plays down in the end, as Outlaws are now 3-0. Empire State, Smitty was tough, being pressured, moving around the pocket, didn't seem comfortable at all, and couldn't connect with his prize player, Brent. But don't worry about Empire State. They will bounce back. They're 2-1, and I see these two teams may be meeting each other in the postseason. Game 4 in Week 3 was between Street Finest and the Demolition Crew. Street Finest was trying to bounce back from their controversial loss to Skywalkers in Week 2, while Demolition Crew was just trying to get a win and maybe score some points finally. That didn't happen, as Street Finest took their frustration out on Demolition Crew, demolishing them 24-6. Quarterback of Street Finest, Chubby Chase, best name in the whole league, did his work and definitely rebounded from a lackluster performance in Week 2 as he went 6 for 14 for 158 yards and 3 touchdowns. Mr. 818, Sammy, combined for 120 total yards and 1 touchdown. And the only thing that was seen to be in doubt was to see if Street Finest was going to be able to keep Demolition Crew from the end zone. That didn't happen as Demolition Crew scored a touchdown late. But as they were going for a 2-point conversion, their quarterback threw an interception to Rashi Scarborough to finally arrive from Street Finest after 2 weeks when we've been all waiting for him to make his presence be felt. Well, he did, taking a 2-point conversion 100 yards back after a lateral to Sammy to put the icing in the game and the nail in the coffin. Demolition Crew is now 0-3. Street Finest is 2-1. But Demolition Crew, come on. Druzy, what's going on, boss? You're 0-3. You got to step it up, boys. You don't want to be looked upon as an easy mark, as an easy W. That's what people are looking at. Can't be that. Come on now, guys. 0-3. Step it up. Bring some passion to it. Horrible. Just absolutely horrible. Terrible, man. In my Charles Barkley voice, that's terrible. And in the final game of Week 3, it was the best matchup. Best game so far this season, as the X-Men, looking to bounce back from a bad loss to White Shadow where they were shut out 13-0, took on Mayhem. Chico Benjamin, quarterback of X-Men, had a bad game in Week 2. Let's just say 4 interceptions, not a good look. But he did redeem himself as he took on Mayhem. Mayhem got a lot of new players in, some talented players to help a team that's been pretty much destroyed in the first couple of weeks. Well, Chico led his team to a 12-0 lead in the first half as he threw 2 touchdowns, 1 to D. Hill. But as you giveth, you taketh away. Chico threw 2 interceptions that led to 14 consecutive points as Mayhem were leading 14-12 and had their first lead all season. But when they were right before the half, right when they were going for a 2-point conversion, they throw an interception. D. Hill takes it back. So the game was tied at 14 going to half. And in the second half, it was a back-and-forth affair as Mayhem took the lead going in the second half on their first possession, and they were up 20-14. But that didn't stop Chico Benjamin and the X-Men team as Chico led his team down the field to tie the game at 20, and then he threw a go-ahead touchdown as the X-Men were up 26-20 with 2 minutes left in the game. Mayhem, 1 possession, drove down the field. 25 seconds left on a 3rd down. They lobbed it up. Touchdown, game tied at 26. Now they had a chance to win the game with an extra point. It was great defense by Edmund Drew, who got through the line, sacked the quarterback, and gave his team a chance now with 19 seconds left in the game to either go down the field for a touchdown or play into overtime, which would have been the first overtime in the EFF season. That didn't happen, as Mayhem did the mistake of kicking the ball off to Detroit. Don't kick the ball to Detroit. He's one of the better returners in the league. Well, what Detroit did? He pulled some Deshaun Jackson stuff. He went one way, turned around and went the other way, took it up the side. Great blocking and great play by the X-Men special team, who pretty much really kept the team together. He went up the sideline, 76 yards, boom, sound of the gun, game over. X-Men win 32-26 as the game ended on Detroit's kickoff return touchdown. Great victory by X-Men. Chico bounced back, going 7 for 12 for 210 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like I said, 2 interceptions to go on with the 4 interceptions he had last week. He's leading the league in interceptions with 6. Little Maurice contributed with a great 22-yard run for a touchdown. But the real star of the game, now many people might say, was Detroit, who did well. got a key contributing reception that brought them down to the red zone. But and of course the kickoff return touchdown, which won the game. But to me, the player of the game was Jose of the X-Men. Jose set the tone from the beginning with an interception. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles, 3 receptions. The man was a stat sheet filler, and he set the tone. And you could tell by his play and his commitment to the team, because he's a team player, that really fueled the X-Men as they did take that early lead. Mayhem, got to give them credit. They fought hard. They had their lead for their first lead all season, which is a big accomplishment because they were getting destroyed all year. And they did battle X-Men in a competitive and best game so far into the 2013 season. Once again, X-Men moved to 2-1. Mayhem is 0-3, 32-26 victory, X-Men, as they are tied with 4 other teams for second place. There's only one undefeated team, and it's the Outlaws. And that puts the end on a great week 3. Can't wait for week 4 when we have some impressive matchups. X-Men versus Street Finest, and in the big marquee matchup, Outlaws versus Terror Squad. Outlaws finally get a chance to prove with the new acquisitions and all the talent that surrounded them, can they finally beat Terror Squad? Remember, the past 3 seasons, they've been ousted in the playoffs by the eventual champions, Terror Squad. This is a preview, maybe a Super Bowl preview, an EFF Super Bowl preview, as Outlaws are the only undefeated team. You're 3-0. Terror Squad seem to finally have their swag. Apparently, somebody had to motivate them that was not on the team. I don't know who that person is, but we'll see if they can carry that momentum and see if they are the best team in the league. We're talking about the 2 best teams. Outlaws, 3-0, defending champs, 5-time defending champs, Terror Squad. And also, breaking news just put in right now, just breaking late. After the game, Terror Squad, this is when you really know that you really think you're some big stuff. You got, your balls, you got some brass balls. They're going to go and have an exhibition game against former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver and NFL star Matthew Hatchett, who was a former EFF champion with team title. It will be Matthew Hatchett and his guys versus Terror Squad after Terror Squad takes on the Outlaws. Now, that's delusions of grandeur to me. If you're going against an Outlaws team who's really focused on winning the title this year and then having an exhibition against a former champion, Matthew Hatchett and team title, that's going to be impressive. Can't wait for it. That's the end of the show. Please join us at Los Angeles Valley College in Valley Glen for week 4, where we're going to have great matchups. Like I previously stated, Street Finest versus X-Men, the marquee matchup, Terror Squad versus Outlaws, and then the exhibition right after that, Terror Squad versus team title, Matthew Hatchett, and former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver, wants to take on the 5-time champs. And that's the end of week 3. Please join us Saturday as week 4 begins with great matchups at the Los Angeles Valley College in Valley Glen, California. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody here with me. I'm Vladimir Lucent. Please join us next week on the EFF Zone.